Listen, are you looking for practical, sustainable, and proven ways to build wealth so you and your family can live the lifestyles you were created to live? Of the one that's filled with freedom and lifestyle options. Are you tired of trying to figure it out all by yourself? And does nobody in your family understand your drive? Then it sounds like you need a new tribe. Well, you're in luck because we just created one here at the Share the Wealth Show called the Wealth Exchange Network, where you can come in, engage, get support, and ask questions with people who have practical knowledge and experience to help you level up and get to that next stage in your journey. So hop on in, click the link in the show notes to join today. Come on and take advantage of this opportunity, and I'm going to see you on the inside. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Microfamily Millionaire. This is the sub-series of the Share the Wealth Show, where we dive deep into strategies, experiences, and mindsets that are crucial for building lasting wealth through real estate, and specifically through small multifamily real estate. I'm your host, Nicole, and today I want to challenge a common belief in the real estate investment world that bigger is always better, especially when it comes to boasting unit counts. So you've probably been to a networking event or some other virtual meetup for real estate or even in person, right? And you probably heard people say the first thing they ask you is, well, how many units do you own? If you say you're in multifamily. Or they might just be bragging about and telling you how many units they own. And if they own 500 or 1,000 or 2,000 or whatever it is. And on the surface, that sounds super impressive, but we have to dig deeper into what that really means so you get a full perspective of the reality, right? And so you don't feel like you are putting yourself down for just getting started or not having as many units or whatever it is. But especially from the perspective of being a general partner or a GP on larger syndicated deals. So firstly, it's important to understand that when someone claims to own like hundreds or thousands of units, that doesn't necessarily mean that they have full ownership of all of those units. In most cases, their ownership could be very low. The percentage that they own in each property, it could be like 1% or less. And it could maybe, let's say it's 5% or even 10%. 10% actually is a good amount. Like that's a big ownership of a GP share, because you normally have a group of general partners. It's not just one or two people in most cases. And that group gets a certain percentage of the entire deal. Let's say normally between like 20 and 30% of the entire deal. Then after that entire deal, all of those general partners split that 20 or 30% between them. So you might end up with ownership of 5% of this 1,000 unit portfolio or 100 units, right? So there's a lot more to consider besides just the number. It's the ownership share. But it seems pretty rude to ask someone, oh, well, what's your percentage ownership of that? Right? If you say, oh, I own 300 units, well, how much of that do you own? Right? And that seems kind of rude, at least to me, to just ask that out front and be so forward. So at the end of the day, take their unit count with a grain of salt, because you have no idea what the back end of that looks like as far as actual ownership. And then as you start developing more relationships in the multifamily world, then you'll have actual like friends and people who you can go back and forth with, and they can tell you the actual ownership percentage that they have of certain deals, right? Secondly, the other thing to think about is with that ownership, what's the cash flow they're actually getting? In most syndications, general partners are typically paid last. Limited partners or the LPs, they typically get a preferred return. And that means they get their share of the profit first. They get their preferred return first. And only after the LPs get that, then the GPs split the remaining returns above and beyond the preferred return. Let's say the preferred return is 8%. Then anything above 8% is what is split with the LPs and the GPs. So the GPs don't even get all of the return above the 8%. They normally get a split of that. So let's say a deal is 12% that is returning. So the LPs get their 8% first, and then the general partners or the GPs split that 4%. And that split can be different. Sometimes maybe that will be a 50-50 split because that means that the general partners are doing good at their job and they're making the building perform and getting the business plan like operating efficiently, et cetera, et cetera. So maybe it's a 50-50 split of that 4%. So now the LPs get 2 more percent on top of their 8. So they have a total of 10. And the GPs get 2% of that 12% return, right? So that's just one example. Let's say a syndication is doing, let's say, a value add strategy, which is pretty common, right? The cash flow can really be super low in those early years, especially like, let's say, the first 2 or 3. It takes time to turn units. It takes time for leases to expire, for you to be able to increase rents to market, to get in there. And actually, if a tenant decides to leave, then you can go and renovate, right? It takes time to decrease expenses. And these are all crucial in adding value to the property because with a commercial multifamily building, the value of the property is based off of the net operating income, which is all of the income minus the expenses, right? So that means at the end of the day, after all that time and work and energy for the GPs to implement the business plan and get this building operating efficiently, um, especially if they've been just working a lot on the project and doing a really good job at it, they still won't see a significant cash flow until much later, right? So even then, the amount might be not be that substantial, especially if their ownership stake is super small. This is information that I've learned from my personal experience doing syndicated deals and being a general partner on deals, and from a lot of candid conversations I've had with other operators. And like I said, as you get into the industry and you start making friends and you have people who you really just trust on that level and you can talk to frankly, those are the kind of conversations that I have with other operators. Mainly, I'm talking about operators who have the experience of maybe they have real estate experience, but they're newer in the syndication world. And maybe they're a co GP on a deal. They're not the lead GP. Even if they're a lead GP, it still just kind of works out this way, depending on how many other GPs you have on the team, honestly. So we all know that syndication is more of a fee-based business than a cash flow business. So you think you're going to do this 100-unit building and you're going to be set for life, you're going to quit your job and do all these other things. That's not actually how it pencils out, right? So you need to have your plan before you jump into these things. So the different fees that syndicators get from a deal, let's say they get acquisition fee, they get maybe a fee for you refinance the property. Maybe you increase the value a little bit and you were able to create some equity there to refinance out. Then the disposition fee, normally near the end of your hold period, when you're able to basically you've gotten all the value out that you plan to get out, and you leave a little bit of meat on the bones for the next buyer, right? So they have incentive to purchase, right? So those are the fees that GPs earn. There is an asset management fee during the whole period when you're managing the property manager, but that's typically very small, and that is for the GPs who are on the asset management team as far as split of responsibilities. But those are also, all of those are like one-time payments. The asset management fee is a little bit of ongoing during the whole period, but the other fees are all one time. So they can be a good infusion. Like if you get a few $1,000s, even if you got a good amount, you got like $10,000 or $20,000, which would be a lot. That's still not, think about that for the year. Like, is that your salary for the year? Then what else are you going to do? You either have to have a very low living lifestyle expenses, or you need to do multiple deals a year, right? But that at the very beginning is not going to be work that can sustain a lifestyle that you really want to live and the reason that you're getting into real estate in the first place. So for newer syndicators or those just entering real estate investment world, my advice is not to get all caught up in the number games of unit counts. Instead, focus on building your experience by starting with smaller properties. And that way you can learn to manage them yourself with a small group of partners, maybe 1 or 2 other partners, like as a joint venture, right? And this allows you to retain more control, learn the ropes, have a higher percentage of the cash flow, and make decisions based on what's best for you as an operational team and not what's optimal for your passive investors, because you don't have passive investors, right? You can do smaller deals yourself and really get that experience under your belt so that when you actually get to a syndicated deal, you have something to point to. You can tell your passive investors, look, I've done XYZ by myself or with my joint venture partner. We owned it for this amount of years. We turned around the property. When we bought it, it was this, but now we've got it to this level here. And that's our experience that I was able to get and able to hone, so that now at these bigger properties, or a property at the size where you would need to syndicate and bring in passive investors, now you have some hands-on real world experience to show them that you know what you're doing, right? So it's really crucial to have other sources of income when you start a syndication. So whether it's your W-2 job, whether you own some of these smaller multifamily properties first, or some other investments, you have dividend stocks, like a healthy amount of that. But having some other steady streams of income is going to give you the financial stability to focus on the syndication and grow your portfolio without relying on the delayed payouts that syndications will give you, right? You need to have other sources of income, start small, build up these other sources of income. And then when you're ready to scale into syndication, you have cash flow already. So you're not stressed about how you're going to pay the bills. And you're able to make decisions with the syndication that are for the bigger benefit of the property, of the project, of your limited partners, and will build up your experience more with the larger deals. So now you can do bigger and bigger and bigger deals. And now your limited partners are going to trust you and trust your experience, and they're going to want to invest with you again and again and again. And that's how you scale, right? So in the end, my personal journey really has led me back to focusing on smaller multifamilies. And if you follow me at all, you know that I talk about microfamily investments all the time, right? But that's because I can have a larger ownership percentage. I generate more cash flow, and I have a little bit more freedom to live the lifestyle that I want and to be able to do what I need. And that doesn't mean you don't get experiences with, things are tight, because multifamily cash flow is not like you get $1,000 a month consistently every single month. It's like 1 month is 300, 1 month is 1,500, the next month is 2,000. The 1 month you don't have anything because you had to pay taxes that month. Like there's a varying wave of cash flow distributions from multifamily, whether that's small or large, right? So you have to do your best to standardize that cash flow and put reserves for other expenses either are coming or that you don't know are coming, and just guesstimate as best you can what those are going to be, and have a standard amount that you can rely on as consistent cash flow, because it's not always going to be the same every single month. You can average that out, but you need to be able to do what you can do and enjoy what you can with the smaller unit counts that you have, and use that to build up. And that's why it's important to have other sources of cash flow. So at the end of the day, it's really not about the number of units that you own, but it's about the quality of those investments and how they align with your personal financial goals, right? So you got to be in this for the long haul. Don't be swayed by the allure of large unit counts. You got to do 100 units, go big or go home. It's what a lot of gurus from the stage say, right? But at the end of the day, it's about building a solid foundation. And I believe you could do that more effectively with smaller deals, learn from them, and then scale your way up to larger deals when you're ready. So thanks for tuning in to Microfamily Millionaire once again. I hope this episode gave you some valuable insights and help you rethink what success in real estate investing really means. And until next time, keep building, growing, and protecting your wealth.